Good afternoon, everybody. I hope everybody is coming in at this moment. Welcome, everybody. Okay, so my name is Remco Lenstra. I'm the one at the bottom right of the screen at this moment. And today we would like to share with you some best practices, some stories, some experiences that we've had in going remote into working from our crib. And so don't expect a 3-hour seminar about in-depth understanding of, but we just want to show you some best practices, some experiences that we have had in the hopes that you can all learn from this experience that we have had also, and that you can start using some of the tips and tricks that we have been developing or been trying out. So basically on the menu today, I've prepared a curated blend, and I have not done this alone. I have done this with a couple of our friends. We will introduce them as we start presenting with them, but I am working together with 2 of my colleagues, Philippe Martens and Roel de Rijk. I am working with a friend that is also helping sometimes within the confines of our management school with the student assignments, for example, with Dennis de Klerk from the company Buffel. And we will be presenting with Manueline Cazot, who is working for Design Innovation, which is basically one of our partners in a Euregional project, the Interreg project Tripod 2. What we're going to do today, I'm going to give you a general introduction. It's not going to be a big theoretical class on design thinking. And then we are going to share our experiences in going remote. And we will have a little bit of a wrap up at the end. To make sure that things go smoothly, I would like the participants to ask their questions via the chat. You can chat in the Zoom account, so you can open the chat function and you can put in your questions. And the 4 panelists that are not, the 3 other panelists that are not presenting at that moment will do their best to try and answer all the questions that you have while we are presenting. If at the end of this session you feel that you still have a question left, please feel free to email us. Please feel free to contact us, and we will discuss this a little bit further. Okay, so for the next hour, I hope we will bombard you with a couple of good practices, and we hope we will inspire you to see that it is possible to innovate from the confines of your own home. Okay, so a couple of things to get started. So first of all, I start every presentation that I give, I start with this picture. And this is a picture that demonstrates the way we used to work. The way we used to work, I got this picture via Bert Cambrai, one of our professors. And it demonstrates the way we used to work in a very controlled environment, in a siloed organization, where command and control was the norm. And this has been shifting for quite a while. This is not something new, that this has been shifting already from let's say, hierarchy and command and control to local decision-making, coaching and servant leadership. There's been a lot of changes going on in the way that we are working. And in essence, this has probably not really something to do with the field of design itself, but it is something that is happening in the companies and in the organizations that we are encountering. So this is a tendency, this is going on. Belief in systems and procedures is going to minimal systems. We're going to more to flexible roles, more focus on team performance. Some big changes in the way we are working, and it is necessary that we make those changes because organizations that have these new characteristics are much more agile, much more adaptable, and much more able to learn than organizations that remain in this old fixed siloed structure. So this is something that is happening in companies. And meanwhile, while this was happening in companies, also the evolution of design has been quite dramatic. This is already a slide from 2001, where when I went to school, I was schooled into designing products. And in 2001 already, we had presentations. This is the 4 Orders of Design of Richard Buchanan that basically said that design has been gradually growing towards the capacity of addressing high holistic network problems. That they are not only designing artifacts, they started designing experiences, and now they're actually a good means for designing and managing transformations within organizations and settings. So this is something that is happening concurrently with the changes that are happening within these companies. So in design, also everything is changing. Design used to be a function in a company in one of those silos. Now it's becoming much more strategic. We're no longer designing only products, but services and systems. We're not only designing for users and end customers, but we're working within the confines of organizations and within networks. We're designing, instead of designing for people, we're also designing with people, co-creating. So when you look at what is happening in the companies and what design has been doing, this is a perfect storm. This is coming together into one place, and this means that in the workplace, design is growing as a function. It's growing as a function not only in the small companies in Flanders. This is a slide of research that we have been doing in the last 10 years about the evolution of design within companies, and there you see that design is becoming more and more strategic. Is getting a strategic place within the companies, and these are, let's say, the smaller Flemish companies. If I may use the Flemish word, the KMO in Vlaanderen. So this is the companies that we are mostly encountering in Flanders, and also there is already a growing of maturity of the design function within these companies. And we also have these big examples. One of my inspirational, of the people that inspire me the most, is a man called Mauro Porcini. I had the luck that he wrote the foreword to the book that we compiled with Flanders in Shape a long time ago, that we're also using in Antwerp Management School. And he's the guy that brought design thinking to Pepsi company under the wing of Indra Nooyi. And they're really turning design thinking into an essence, into a central pillar, into a central program within the company of Pepsi Cola. People who are a little bit into design thinking also probably have read these kinds of reports about the value of business design, the business value of design by McKinsey, or these kinds of reports about the total economic impact of the IBM's design thinking practice. Basically, when the Big Four are starting to use this in their consultancy, when IBM is publishing with Forrester some reports, you can say that we have reached a place where they suddenly discovered that design is relevant for companies. And this is where we are at this moment. Now, if we are looking into, for example, how design is benefiting IBM in an economic sense, then you can, for example, see that the product development cycles are going faster through the design methodology that they are using through implementing design thinking within IBM, which saves them a lot of money. That the profitability of their portfolio is increasing, and this is largely due to the fact that they make less mistakes because they work with people. They do human-centered design, they do testing, so they abort projects sooner if they make no sense. If the customer is not asking for the solution that they are designing, basically IBM says, then we will not do it. And this also saves a lot of money. And another very important way that this design thinking implementation within these companies is saving money for IBM is because it streamlines their organizational process efficiency. Basically, they have new processes and new communication structure that break the silos within the organization so they can be much more agile. So design thinking as a discipline has a lot of advantages for these companies. So while these companies had the need of working in a different way, design thinking provided at least part of the answer. Now, what is design thinking? In essence, design thinking is design also for non-designers. So basically, design thinking is design opened up for other peoples to participate to the process of design-driven innovation. Design thinking is turning design into a team sport. In a team sport, into a multidisciplinary team sport. So if you look at the 6 pillars of design thinking, then you can see that design thinking is human and user-centered. Logic, you're designing for people. It's holistic. It basically tries to design for a bigger perspective. It tries to design on a systemic level rather than on a punctual level. We don't deal with the details, we deal with the big picture. It's co-creative, we work together. It's problem solving. I think this is clear, that design starts with a problem and ends with a solution, if it's handled correctly. And it's multidisciplinary. which means that we try to combine the best characteristics and the knowledge of a lot of different people around this process to design the best possible solutions for the problems that we have found. And also it makes use of what they call abductive reasoning, which basically is a way of creative reasoning that is reasoning out of the data instead of inductively and deductively. Now, design thinking has become popular through organizations like IDEO and Stanford D School, where they started showing the design thinking process in a way such as the one that we see here in front of us. And basically, when they talk about design thinking, they're talking about an empathy phase, a definition phase, an ideation phase, a prototyping phase, and a testing phase. It starts with empathy and it ends with implementation of a solution to a problem. I am happy that the design thinking process has been made popular like this, but first and foremost, design thinking is a mindset rather than a process. It's a mindset that has combined certain practices, thinking styles, and a certain mentality. So basically, what are the core activities in a design thinking process? In what way does design thinking differentiate itself from classical linear approaches, and in what mindset does a designer have? There's a nice summary in the work of Hassi and Laxo, the three-dimensional framework of design thinking, where they talk about the practices. It's human-centered, it's thinking by doing, it's very visual, it uses a combination of divergent and convergent approaches, and it's very collaborative. It uses this abductive reasoning, reflective reframing, holistic view, integrative thinking, but most importantly for today, I think it is experimental and explorative. It is ambiguity tolerant. Experimental and explorative, it means that we are not afraid to take risks and to experiment our way forward. It's ambiguity tolerant. We are not afraid of the unknown. It's optimistic. We know we can make things better. And it's future oriented. And I think this is a very nice mentality, especially in adverse times like COVID-19 and stuff like that, that you know that with this design thinking mindset, you know that you can make the situation that you are in into a better situation. So this is something that I find really inspiring, and I hope you feel the same. Now, if we look at how we portray design thinking as a process, we use the double diamond. A double diamond is a model developed by the British Design Council about 10, 12 years ago. And in the double diamond, you have these two distinct phases. You have the first diamond, in which you try to find a user need, in which you try from a strategic perspective, open up a research, try to establish a need in a context, a need that has been felt by your users. And once you have established this need through data, through research, data gathering and analysis, you find a possibility for innovation. So it starts with the left diamond where you say, I need to find out what my customer needs. And then the right diamond is about developing the solution to this problem. So the left diamond is about finding the thing that you need to build. And the right diamond is about building this thing in a correct way. If you look at the phases within this design thinking process, they say, first of all, we start from a strategic context. That's not the case in every design thinking process, but we at AMS, we have a course called Business Design Thinking, where we always start from a business question. Then we start doing the research, where we try to get into the world of the users by qualitative research, such as observations, interviews, and focus groups and stuff like that. We analyze this data, and when we really established the need from our users, we brief a design project. And then we go to the next phase where we start designing this thing, where we start ideation, creative ideas, concept development. And when the concept has been developed, we try to find a way towards market, but also an integration into the business. And whether it is inside our existing business or in a spin out or in a venture, or that's irrelevant at this moment, but we try to integrate it into a business setting. Now, when we are working with these tools and methodologies that we can find within this design thinking context, we see something strange happening. And I like this quote First, we shape our tools, and then our tools shape us. By practicing the process of design thinking, it changes the way you think as an individual, and it changes the way you operate as a company or as an organization. So the goal and the side effect of design thinking, when people start doing design thinking courses, they think that they're being taught a process. And okay, it starts with a process. But what we are trying to teach people is these working methods, these thinking styles, this mentality of the designer. We want to make it part of themselves. So on a company level, design thinking is basically a social technology for change, achieving creative confidence. And maybe I have to explain this a little bit. Design thinking is the campfire for the multidisciplinary team. It's the process that brings people together to think about problems and to design solutions. And of course, this process is being scripted in some way, but it's a series of activities over time to go from a user need to a feasible solution. And on a personal level, you don't do design thinking, you become a design thinker. And this has a lot to do with neuroplasticity. By repeating this process of innovation through design thinking over and over again, it becomes your second nature. And this is something that we try to get to by doing design thinking. You have to become a design thinker, and you need your company also to adopt this unified approach of innovation within their company. Now, so basically, design thinking is an excellent way of feeding the individual innovation skills and behaviors of people. This book by Christensen is very well known, The Innovator's DNA, where he says the innovator basically has behavioral skills, questioning, observing, networking, and experimenting. And I think you can see how it coincides with the Hasse and Laxo model that I just showed you. So this is on an individual level. It makes you more creative as a person, but also on a company level. When we teach companies all kinds of tools, and we teach these companies, these tools can be observation tools, can be prototyping tools, it can be research tools, it can be briefing tools. If we teach all these companies all these tools, and they start using these tools into various processes, they cannot help but start communicating around these processes. If you want the process to work, a new process within a company, then you need to somehow also start making new communication lines. These new communication lines will most probably not follow the strict hierarchy of the silos that your organization has had. So you're starting slowly but surely to break the structure, the structure of your company communication structure and hierarchy structure. You start breaking it from the bottom up, from the processes to the hierarchy. And this has a very positive effect on the innovation culture within a company. A company starts growing and starts communicating in a different, much more efficient way around this campfire, this social technology, which is called design thinking. And when a company does this successfully over time, they become confident in this innovation process. And this, for me, is the ultimate goal of design thinking, is to establish creative confidence within companies and to fill these companies with people that are design thinkers, that have the skill set and the mindset and the attitudes of design thinking. And for me, this is more important than the process. This is the change that you want to somehow get into these organizations. Now, this is all I'm going to tell you in ways of introduction, just so that you know that the way that we from Antwerp Management School look at design thinking. Design thinking, of course, is important as a process to create output in product services systems. But for us, it is a business competence. So if I want to just make sure that you remember design thinking is good for your bottom line. Remember the IBM example. Design thinking is a business competence and a team sport, as well as an individual skill set and a mentality. Design thinking can lead to an innovation culture and creative confidence. Design thinking is about solving problems, wicked problems, and not merely creating stuff. Design thinking is supported by processes and tools, but don't mistake the process for design thinking. Design thinking is supported by processes and tools, but it is not a process. And design thinking is optimistic and future-oriented. And it might just be the case that the designerly attitude will get you past this COVID-19 crisis. Let's all hope so. Now, when this COVID-19 crisis came, we were all working in settings around this double diamond model, where we used to go into the context of people and do observations, and we went out and we went to visit people, we went to do interviews. We were never in-house. We were always in the context doing qualitative research with users. And then when we wanted to create something, we invited all these people around this big table with Post-its and papers, and we started creating this kind of magic of co-creation of people in a room reaching this transdisciplinary effect of combining their knowledge and prototyping and making sense of all this data, this magic that happened there. And of course, we also did a lot of physical prototyping. We played with Lego, we built cereal boxes, we built all kinds of low fidelity prototypes all together. So we did all kinds of work. We did a lot of the times together in context. And then this stupid thing called COVID-19 came. And suddenly we all had to do this from our home. Now we are very lucky that on the one hand, as a management school, we have always been working with blended learning approaches and digital integration of stuff within our education. So mentally we were prepared for this. And luckily also there's a lot of free and accessible technology out there that you can implement in your projects. But what worried us the most when we switched from the people in the room with Post-its to the remote behind the computer was these three questions. How do we get access to good user data from the confines of our cribs? How can we immerse ourselves deeply enough within the context of our users if we cannot leave our house? It's a fundamental question for user research. A second question we had is, how do we create the effect of transdisciplinarity without physically meeting? How can we somehow make people working together in a remote setting equal more than the sum of its parts? And then quality and amplitude, which I will come back to at the end. But how do we avoid that our innovation process becomes innovation theater, that we start doing the process but not doing it well enough because we are not together anymore? When we are detached from this process and from each other, how do we maintain quality? These were the main questions that we have been tackling or been battling with. And we hope that we will be able to show you in the next 40 minutes, we will be able to show you how we came about this. So what in the next 40 minutes we will show you are a couple of short introductions and cases. First of all, I'm going to tell you a little bit about how we use Miro and Zoom in our masterclasses. And I'm also going to tell you a little bit about remote qualitative research and what we have done to access this user data in a good way. Then Dennis is going to talk to us about involving user panels in innovation processes and through a remote way. Philippe, my colleague, is going to speak about journey mapping using free tools. And Manueline is going to speak about prototyping using Mural, Marvel, and Powtoon. And Roel is going to share his experiences in hackathons using tools such as Miro. So this is the menu that we have prepared for you today. And I will start with one of the projects that we have been working on, or one of the master classes that we have been teaching. Now, in this crisis, suddenly and also before even, but the word purpose has become more and more prevalent. Everybody's talking about you need to reconnect with your purpose. You need to rethink your organization because with this crisis, you need to reestablish yourself. You need to think about your why. And for people who have read the book Exponential Organizations, there is a term there which is a term which is called the massive transformative purpose. And what is a massive transformative purpose? A massive transformative purpose is the higher aspirational purpose of an organization, capturing the hearts and the minds of those both inside and especially outside of the organization. we have developed a tool for this that makes companies re-establish their why. And in the old days, it used to look a little bit like this, where we asked people to start from their own projects, from the products that they are making right now, and through a series of questions, establishing their why in a societal sense, defining their massive transformative purpose. This, for example, is for a clothing company that wants to become the most honest industry ever. So transparency in clothing and stuff like that. And then we taught people how they can translate these different levels of this why into their products. So this is the why, this is the how, and this is the what. A little bit comparable to the Golden Circles Simon Sinek approach. Now, I am sharing my screen at this moment, and I will take you, if the computer allows me, I will take you to the Miro board that we have been using for this. And I see that in my preparation, it's here. Okay. So what I'm sharing with you at this moment is a Miro board. A Miro board is a let's call it an infinite whiteboard. It replaces this table and this post-its for you in a digital sense. And in this Miro board, you can do virtually everything that you can do on a piece of paper, and you can do it also in groups. So what we do is we work with breakout groups in Zoom, and people working around these challenges. On the right side, you see how we would do it in paper. On the left side over here, you can see how people do this in a virtual sense. And you can see that this is quite similar. Now, if we prepare this tool, we prepare it a little bit like this. So this is a locked environment, and these are free tools to use. And basically people can work together by putting their stuff in the Miro tablet. Maybe I can explain to you a little bit. This is a tool that tries to make people think about the purpose of their company. And they think about the purpose by being inspired by the Sustainability Development Goals that have been developed by the United Nations. And they develop a timeline for their development by using technologies. They look at when technology becomes mature, and this establishes their timeline. So they have a goal, a timeline, and then they fill this timeline with all kinds of products and services that they might build to reach this goal. This is a bit the essence of the tool. If you are interested in this tool, maybe in next webinar, we will go a little bit deeper into it. And you can fill this tool up with all kinds of sticky notes. So for example, I'm writing some sticky notes and I put them in. For example, they are now here. And this is mechanically how we have tried to translate this physical sense to this digital environment. And I've just done a little bit of a survey, or Philippe has just done a little bit of a survey with the people that were working in these tools during the masterclass, and they were very positively surprised by the interaction that it allowed, and they are really happy about this. Okay. Next case that I would like to present to you is switching to remote qualitative research. We are working a lot into, let's say, bigger projects like ESF, European Social Fund projects, where we used to do a lot of interviews and focus groups and stuff like that. And then suddenly after COVID-19, we had to somehow redesign our research approach and try to get access to this qualitative data in different ways. Now, I would like to share to you a little bit of the tips and tricks of what we have done. So first of all, for example, in a project that we are doing at this moment about the success factors of reintegration in the workplace of people who have suffered from a burnout, We have, first of all, tried to identify people who have suffered from a burnout, and we have approached them, first of all, using what we call a sensitizing probe. And this sensitizing probe is also a remote tool because we have done this by mail. And this sensitizing probe, we have then started, and this sensitizing probe, we have then started to work in a physical sense, each from their own office on a kind of a research wall. Now, once you have done all this work, how can you share this work with your colleagues? There's a couple of ways. This is a screenshot from the same data that you saw right here, but then photographed through the Post-it Plus app, and then we could put this into Miro, and then we could start sharing and clustering it. So basically, what we have tried to do is to make a hybrid way of working offline and online together, but always share our research within the confines of this Miro place. Then we had to redesign our approach towards interviews and focus groups. Now, luckily, the preparation of focus groups and interviews are quite similar. We work with discussion guides. We make mind maps to prepare for this, and we have quickly found out that that actually it is quite possible for interviews to be very qualitative and have very good quality when you do them via Zoom. So how does it work in our setting? So first of all, we have established a relationship with the people that we want to interview based on the fact that they have said they have made the probe for us, and we have already talked to them a little bit about how the probe should function. So they already know the agenda that we are going to talk about. And then something strange happens. When you are doing an interview through Miro, of course, you have the setback that you are not in the context. That means that there's a lot of the data that you will not have because you are not there. But there is also a very strange effect within this interview. It's a very strange effect, a very positive effect. And we call it the confession booth effect, where by the fact that you are remote in a kind of an anonymous context, there's and the people that you are talking to are at home in a very safe environment. The process of going into a very deep and emotional conversation and to really get to those user needs actually goes surprisingly easy. People that have been working on the probe first and then and then are in the interview, they are prepared mentally for this discussion, and and because they are in a safe zone, they share their problems, and they really share deep they really go deep with you in a very easy way. Now, the focus groups, of course, we need to adapt also a little bit. Normally, when we do focus groups, we try to get 8 to 12 people into a room, and 60 minutes, 75 minutes, we try to have a focus group with them. Of course, when you start talking with 12 people into one Zoom group, it becomes a little bit difficult. Now, this means that we still do focus groups, but we don't do heterogeneous focus groups anymore. We do focus groups that really are homogeneous. It means that we select similar participants, experts, for example, or one persona type. So basically, we focus on the persona type. We share a high-level topic lists in advance to break the ice a little bit. And by the time the conversation starts, we can all still talk with an open camera and an open mic because we are a small group within this Zoom confines. And this also seems to be a very good way of getting in-depth knowledge. So we limit the number of people. We also segment the people more in small groups, and we try to focus more focused topics, no open conversations, more focused topics, and a little bit of a discussion guide that has been shared beforehand. So, tips and tricks for remote interviews, focus groups, user data gathering. I work in a scientific institution, but when you need to get to the data, sometimes you need to be a pragmatist and not a purist. So if you cannot follow the letter of the law of each and every tool, a little bit of data is better than no data at all. So be a pragmatist. Distribute your tasks in your research team very well. For example, when you are doing interviews, really, we do interviews with two people. One is doing the interview and the other one is taking real-time notes within the mind map and doesn't interfere. Now, design two flows. Design the relationship build up with your interviewee. Start the relationship a couple of weeks before you talk to them for the interview, so that they grow into the process and they will be more easily open their hearts to you. Go semi-structured and so don't go too methodological, go semi-structured within these interviews. Send probes, always, it helps. When people have made a probe, they are much more prepared for an interview. Zoom is more of a confession booth than you might think. Focus groups, keep them small, open camera and mic, and focus on homogeneous. And the last thing is read academic papers in moderation. And this means that when you go into the research, keep an open mind. And once you have learned, then start reading academic papers and compare what you have found out with what is established, so that you keep an open mind before you start doing the research. This is probably something that my colleagues will not always agree with me upon, but because we are a good team, in this team we are working with an academic, an expert, and a design thinker, and this interaction works really well. Okay. Next, I would like to introduce the screen for the use of user panels and innovation processes to Dennis de Klerk. I will stop sharing my screen and Dennis, you can take over.
Yeah, thanks, Remco. So hi, everyone. My name is Dennis. I'm the founder of Buffel Scale-Up in Belgium, and we actually do just market research, and our niche is in innovation. So let me see if I can share screen here. Go. Normally, you should see my screen. So we are an agile market research firm. I will not get too much into details, but basically what we do is we have built a platform that allows questions to be sent to a community. That makes it possible to, in an app way, for example, that we can gather data very fast. So within 10 minutes, we gather around 300 to 500 responses, which opens a lot of possibilities, actually. We can be integrated in innovation processes in which the clock speed of innovation is always faster than the clock speed of market research. And that's why we needed to change this. My background is in product and service design, so I hope I know what I'm talking about. But the thing is, I saw by working for corporates that we actually have some work to do about innovation or within innovation. We see that innovation is a double diamond or a triple diamond, how you want to call it. And a lot of decisions during that process are made based on gut feeling. And that's quite dangerous because you're building on assumptions and on expertise and on facts that you think you know. And you're building a new product or service based on assumptions most of the time. Not always, but most of the time. And that's actually why a lot of those things fail. Now, the other side of the platform is that we link it to external panels, for example, but we can expand our audience virtually unlimited, actually. Now, enough about the Buffel platform. As Remco already talked, that 73% of small SME owners claim that innovation is a top 3 priority within their organization. Yet 72%, even higher in outside of Belgium, is 75 to 80% of new products and services fail within the year that they're launched. That's an astonishing number. Just to give you an idea, for a corporate, telco or energy, an innovation track from start to end costs about 1 million. And that's a lot of money if you know that it's only 25% chance that it's going to work. And this is basically why. So most of the times, the innovation track starts with a market research, like explorative, just what is in the market, what is happening. And we see that a lot of decisions are made during that process. And what you see is that the ideal path towards product market fit is just a straight line. That means that every decision that you make along that line is exactly what needs to be made, and that the end user is going to get a product or service exactly solving their needs. But what we see is during that process, a lot of these decisions are being made, and you'll be amazed how many decisions you take during the day that you do not really think about the end user while you're making them. Are we going to build an app or a website? Does it needs to be green or yellow or black? It doesn't matter. You think we're gonna try and use branding and things like that, and we throw it and we ask the marketing department how should we do it, but we do not come to a standstill when we ask ourselves, is this an assumption or do we know this for a fact? And in the end, what you're gonna have is that you're gonna throw a new product or service on the market, and then you're gonna check. This is a moment of truth here, because you're gonna see whether or not it's selling. Are people buying my product or service right now? And if that's your first moment of truth, then you know that if it fails, you've thrown away a whole innovation process. And that's pretty expensive. And that's why the terms failing fast forward came to mind. And that's why design thinking actually is a better way of going about this. Now, some risks in innovating in this way are the feature shock, for example. We host and we guide with live data a lot of ideation sessions and hackathons. That means that a lot of people are in one room and they try to solve a problem of an end user. What you see is that a lot of those innovations are actually just Swiss pocket knives. They claim to find a lot of problems, and then in the end, they want to solve them all in an MVP. But that's never going to work, because people are not really sure what exact core problem that you're solving. So be wary for feature shock. It means don't put too many features in your MVP. You can always improve, you can always adapt, and you can always add more later. But for an MVP, it's very important that the user knows what exactly you're offering. Another one is the undead. It means that you're building a product that actually in the market, nobody's really looking for. It's not really solving a very big problem. It's like vanity. It's luxury. It doesn't always solve a problem. And when you're thinking inside design thinking as a mindset, it means that it's better to create something that people want than make people want it. That's the marketing segment. That's the other side. The other one is the hidden gem. It means that during hackathons and during ideation sessions, for example, during brainstorm sessions that you're having with your team, it's quite possible that you're not focusing on the right post-it that someone put on the wall, because maybe the idea was not picked up. Maybe the idea was not thought of 5 people. And if you're doing the voting system and 5 people have the same idea, it's probably going to be that idea that's going to make the cut. Could be that there's a hidden gem right there, and it might be interesting just to have a second look. That's why using a Miro board to scan those post-its are very good. It makes it possible that you can have a flashback, like a throwback. What did we do last week? The ideation session. What was happening there? What did we actually thought of? And doesn't mean that the project or the idea that you went further with during the ideation session or that sprint doesn't have to be the best one. That's why you need to validate. So hidden gems. And then the minivation. Also a problem. This is actually the worst case scenario and the best case scenario. That means that if you're building a product and a service that's actually solving a problem, that you're lowballing it, that you're not asking enough price-wise, that you're not going bold enough and going internationally, for example. This is always the case, actually, that the second one in the market is taking the market. The first one is entering it, is seeing the opportunity, but is lowballing it, is going too slow, is not getting funding as soon as possible, or not enough, or not fast enough. And that's why we're talking about the minivation. Now, we talked about, Remco talked about the two-sided, the double diamond. We actually try to think of it as a triple diamond because you diverge and converge again in every phase. So you have the problem, solution, and go-to-market phase, just to put it simple. We have 2 checkpoints here. After a problem, you have a problem statement. That means that you're gonna pinpoint exactly where you're gonna go. This is what we're gonna solve. Solution, just same thing. You're gonna create a lot of ideas. You're gonna select the ones that are actually the best. And then you have a problem solution fit that you have to validate again. The words that I'm saying, validation, this is a key element here. The best guess model canvas, this is actually where validation comes into place. I think everybody here in the call knows what a business model canvas is, but the first time you fill it in, it's a best guess model canvas. You're just guessing. And it's your job to start validating each part. So I would advise this as a communication channel. Use this as a snapshotting tool that you can see, where's my company going, what is yet to do for us, where can we eventually pivot, because that's exactly what we did with Buffel as well. In the beginning, we were a marketing tool, not market research. So we used a different channel for our idea in the market. Then about market research itself, it's better to have iterative research instead of one big chunk of data. Because every question that you're asked is gonna get more questions out of your audience. And you're gonna learn so much. That's why when you're doing qualitative interviews, either through Zoom or face-to-face or on the phone, try to really focus on the core problem. What do you want to know? You want to know what's living inside their day-to-day lives. What are their struggles? What are their frustrations? You get some input there, notch it down, and then afterwards you can get a new research going. Now, I'm going to move a bit faster. For the triple diamond, every phase has its own tests that you can do. And one of those classics is the persona test. The advice I always give is don't start research with a persona in mind, because you're going to have tunnel vision before you know it. And in the end, you're going to focus on a target group that might not be the most profitable one or the one with the biggest problem. So ask about problems and learn from that data and see who's coming up here. Is it a certain age group? Is it a certain sex, for example? Is it where they live? Is it geographically bound? You'll know afterwards. If I'm going to ask 300 people, what is your biggest problem in the energy market? They're sure to be giving me an answer, and I can cluster it and then see, okay, the cluster of my energy bill might be a big problem. Let's see who is having this problem. Is it homeowners? Is it people who rent? Is it people with families? Then you can start creating your persona. Don't just start on, I'm going to ask this survey to young people or hipsters, because that's hot now. Don't do that. You're going to create tunnel vision before you know it. What we do as Buffel while guiding companies or people through an innovation process is we try to make it as the lower the threshold, the better. So we try to put every of these phases into a curated template for asking questions. I'm not going to go through it now. If someone's interested in this, drop a line in the comments and I will send it to you, or Remco will divide it or distribute it. But basically, this helps getting grasp of where in the innovation process you should validate and what you should validate. Then Buffel worked together with AMS. We worked with the innovation masters, and they were in the end of the problem phase, starting the solution phase, and actually the next part was going to be go to market. So just to give like an example what we do, I have put one of those student groups, those innovation teams survey online, and this was balance between the problem and the solution phase. Ideally, you don't do that. Ideally, you know the problem exploratively, and then you evaluatively focus on the right one. And then afterwards, you can just go to the solution phase. But here it was a bit of both. And actually, this is a very pragmatic way of going about a data set. You can just see this target group, for example, the 25 to 34-year-olds, are they answering differently versus the people that are an older age group? Now, just because we're running out of time, I would say that if they have selected like an age group here, I would say that the problem of drinking wine, because this was a survey about wine, and we know all in COVID-19 times, everyone is a raging alcoholic. So this is why I chose this survey. But basically what's saying here that they wanted to explore the pains and the frustrations of people that do not know anything about wine. And what we see is that the age group is not really relevant. And imagine that we wanted to share a survey and we thought that only young people have problems with not knowing anything about wine, then we would have had tunnel vision. And right now, out of the survey, it comes that age is not a really a filter to take into account. It's more about how they were raised and how they like the taste. But moreover, people, whether or not they like wine or are wine connoisseurs, they vote for price. And that's something that in this concept they did not know. And here we see, well, it's not relevant. It's not. I will share this data set anyway, so you can always browse after. I'm going to quickly go to the takeaways. So making personas up front is a risk. that you create tunnel vision. I repeated a few times. Make sure that you remember this one. Do iterative research. Make sure that you don't do huge multi-page surveys. One, they will be filled in slower and it will be hard to find people to do this for you. And also you lose focus because you have a big, very big data set. It's hard to focus on. Challenge your own assumptions always through the whole process and start notching them down try to nudge them down on Post-its and really challenge yourself to challenge your assumptions. Validate during the innovation process, not before and after only. So make sure that you question yourself every day. And then a little talk about how you make sure that you're not doing the theater, the innovation theater, is how can you make something actionable. And this, what we saw is that we have a 40% increase in management buying when you can convince them that you validated everything during the week. And that's the power of instant validation. You can, during your sprint or during your courses, you can just validate everything that the questions will arise in the jury or within management. They will have the same questions as you have, hopefully. If you can already sidetrack that and you can say, well, we have validated this and it's true and we are sure, then you have 40% more chance that they will step into your project and they will become an ambassador of your project. It creates a sense of urgency. So that was my time. I'm sorry if I went over.
We are going, in fact, over time at this moment, but we will try to make it as efficient as possible. For the next presentation, I would like to invite Philippe. He has developed or devised a way of doing customer journey mapping in Teams remotely, and he would like to share his experiences with that and maybe even do a little bit of a test. I will stop sharing. Philippe, you can take the screen.
Thank you, Remco. Hello, everybody. I'm going to be very comprehensive because we're running behind of time. I want to share with you just the best practice on how we did an online customer journey mapping exercise. So as you can see on the picture, normally customer journey workshops are done physically with your users. On the picture, you can see me doing a customer journey workshop with students as live users. But in these times, of course, we cannot meet each other physically. And so I will just present to you how we did it with online tools, using online free tools. So just a quick word about the customer journey mapping for the people who are not so familiar with the tool used widely in design, innovation, and marketing projects. It's a timeline actually of the journey your users are experiencing during your service or your product offering. And what you actually want to do is analyze and discover what the experiences of your users are in different touch points on an emotional basis and an impact basis. So what are the emotions of your users in each touch point, and what are the impacts of those touch points on the total journey? So just to demonstrate, what I want to do with you is to do a very, very fast customer journey mapping of this webinar. So can you please just pick your smartphone and just try to scan the QR code with your mobile phone camera application. If not, just enter the URL if you don't have a QR code feature, and you will come to a survey with 3 fast questions, which are anonymously entered, and then you can see directly live the results. So you can see also on the top, we immediately see here the entrance of all you participants, and we see directly the votes coming in. So the first question was, how did you experience the registration of the webinar? The second question was, how do you feel about the webinar so far? So mixed emotions a little bit, but I want definitely also to share how can you capture the dramatic arc, the impact. Well, you just can ask which moments during this webinar had the greatest impact on you as a user of this webinar. So, and then you can see directly the results popping up live. You see on the screen, everybody is entering, and we see that the introduction by Remco was quite popular, had a big impact. And so you can see directly what is your emotional curve and your dramatic curve. So you can then translate the results into those curves, and you can analyze those curves. So how did we do this? You just, using PowerPoint. Oh.
You have stopped sharing, Philippe.
Yes, sorry for that. You're just using PowerPoint and a free poll application. In this case, we use Poll Everywhere. Why? Because it has an easy add-on free for PowerPoint. So just when you use Poll Everywhere, you can just enter directly as an add-on the questionnaire in your PowerPoint, and you can just put all features directly from PowerPoint, which is free for use. You only have to set up an account. And then you can directly see the results and export them and very fast implement them in your customer journey results and do the analysis afterwards. So it's a free, very easy use tool to do a fast customer journey mapping with your participants in any video conferencing tool which allows you to share your screen. So it can be Google Hangouts, Skype, whatever, and PowerPoint and Poll Everywhere.
Okay. Thank you very much. So you can see that you can use off-the-shelf free available tools and tweak them into and force them into creating customer journeys for you. This is a very nice example of a tool where we don't need to pay a lot of license fees and still have a good result working from home. So this is a very nice addition to this webinar. Next person I would like to invite to share some experiences with us is Manueline Cazot. She will try to show us a little bit, mostly about prototyping. Manueline, take it away, and I will skip the slides for you whenever you want.
Hi, everybody. I'm really happy to be with you today to share some experiences, and especially a few weeks ago, we had to facilitate at Design Innovation a design sprint. So this is the case I'm going to use. First, we had 7 participants on Teams. Sharing some different rooms and canals, and at the same time we were using murals. So for the ones I already asked, Miro and mural are really similar. I think it's more about feeling, and we've chosen to use a mural at Design Innovation. So on the next screen you could see a bit how it looks like on mural. You have an outline on the right to go faster on some places, and on the left some post-it and different shapes you can add, etc. And on the next slide you could see you can be connected by computer to mural, but you could also use some mobile application like in Windows and Apple. So please, Remco, next slide. Yeah, so this is the app you could use. Like you could see on the picture, I am drawing in live, and my participant could see on their own screen a map. So that's also about using a whiteboard in digital. So on the next slide, you could see when we had this nice experience about design sprint, we've been passing through different steps. This one was about sketching. So all the participants were sketching on paper, taking pictures of their drawing, import, upload pictures on mural and edit post-it. Then we also had a voting session for some ideas. And on the next one, you could see the first storyboard we made together. And on the next one, you could see another stage of storyboarding, still mixing paper, taking sketch pictures of the sketches and go on to mural to share with the groups the individual steps. So of course, we had to communicate very well between the participant and the groups. The design sprint was 4 days, but we've decided to include one extra day to help people to meet each other, to be really relax about the digital tools, to have time to test all the tools before to get in the proper design sprint week. On the next slide, you could see then we really have started to design and prototype on Mural. So Mural is not really the one who make only great prototypes, but the point here was then every participant needed to be really confident and relaxed about using tools. So some of them were using Illustrator, Photoshop, or even Canvas or other programs, and then everyone combine their own design on Mural. The next step show you then we were ready at the end of the week to test our solution, but to explain the context of the prototype, we made a video with Powtoon because it was easier to explain to the users who were coming for interviews with an introduction in video. And on the next step, you could see the way we've showed the prototype to the user. We've been using Marvel. Usually when you prototype on paper very quickly during a workshop, you could use Marvel, this very great app, to take pictures of your different design, and you combine them, and you can really, as if it's a real app without development, test your application. And in this case, we did it through a screen. So on the next slide, you could see we were combining Zoom with some user for interview and this very great program called Marvel. And to end this presentation, I want to tell you how we get information. So when we were on Zoom, different people had different roles. One had the role to tell the storytelling and ask questions to the users. Another one had to take all the insight. It's what we could see on the next slide. One of us was on Mural again. So please, Remco, you could please show the next one. Thank you. So on this one, you could see all the colorful post-it. It's all the insight. People were smiling. People were like asking questions with their face. It was really about collect insight. And on the next one, another member of the group was directly on Marvel, writing some comments. Luke think it's interesting, but he is not sure if we are a big team, then this app will work. That's how I will end this short presentation, but hope full of tools you could use. So please don't be afraid, just jump in it. Don't hesitate. It's easy. It's really ergonomic. It's very possible. It's really possible to have a nice group dynamic, even if people doesn't know each other before the workshop. Prototyping online is as easy as it is on paper. Interviews are great online, and making video to introduce your prototype before the interview is a very good way to show your idea to the participants. So please have fun online.
just going to talk about my experience. The experience I want to talk about is an online hackathon that was organized end of March, Hack the Crisis. And we entered the hackathon with a specific purpose in mind. We entered the hackathon with a team of young dropouts because the actions that we took towards this hackathon were linked to a research project where we help dropouts develop a specific growth mindset and new future skills to be able to cope with their current problems, mainly that they are not performing well in traditional education, but are having to build a successful life after education, which is pretty complex. Why did we go to that hackathon? Well, a hackathon is pretty important regarding to the development of these youngsters, to these dropouts, because the service that we developed incorporates design sprints to train them on creativity, on problem solving, on collaboration and communication. But design sprints are mainly a closed exercise, and we use hackathons to experience the same design environment, mainly again a design sprint, but now in an open environment with a lot of competition and a lot of network opportunities. And the reason why we go to hackathons, of course, is also to introduce completely new networks to youngsters, to young dropouts, so they can link up with a world that was unknown for them. Until the crisis, we did it mainly analog. We did it one by one or in team. We used posters, we used post-its. You know how it works. Everyone did it before the crisis. Why did we do it one-on-one? Why did we do it in team and personally? Because we could really feel and see what these youngsters experienced during these design sprints. Of course, when the crisis came, all these traditional design sprint actions stopped, but we wanted to go on with our service and with our research towards these dropouts. So we set up an experiment and we asked our group of youngsters that we were working with, we already did one design sprint with them, if they were willing to enter Hack the Crisis. For people who don't know a hackathon and a Hack the Crisis, in special, a hackathon is an event of 2 or 3 days where where people come together normally to work on complex problems, and at the end of these 2 or 3 days, everyone pitches a solution for the problem, and most of the hackathons also have a small a competition, and there will be a winner announced at the end of the hackathon. For Hack the Crisis, it was the same. The only difference was that it was completely online. The first time ever that I was going to experience it. And there was also a prize to win, and the prize that could be won was that there was extra investment to develop the concept towards solving problems regarding to the current crisis. We entered the hackathon with a goal of working closely with the youngsters, with our young participants on solving problems that were directly related to their life. And they decided to work on how to reach the unreachables, how to inform youngsters on what they can do and what not to do. So prevent lockdown parties and things like that. I'm not going to talk about what exactly came out of the hackathon. I'm going to immediately go towards, okay, which tools did we use? We used Miro. We used Miro as our digital workspace throughout the 3 days. We used Hangout for the communication, and we used Loom for the recording of the video pitch. What was available from the hackathon organizer, they used Slack for all the information about the hackathon, and they also used WebEx for video information, so for video calls. What's important to mention is the first thing that we learned about this online hackathon is if you have novice participants, like we had, young girls and guys who don't have experience with a hackathon, you have to protect them from an overload of technological tools. So we decided to show Slack to them, but we immediately saw that it was too complex. It was an overload on information. So we decided to build like a technological bubble specifically for our team. The Buffel technology was also available to do market research, but again, for our group, it was technically too complex to offer this kind of tool to do more research. We did it straightforward in dialogue with them online. What's important if you set up a digital workshop or digital design sprint or a digital hackathon is that you have to keep in mind that scripting equals quality. If you are well prepared, and that means if you are digitally well prepared, the quality will be much more guaranteed, of course, than if you go into a hackathon in a traditional way. You step into these 3 days and you start working and you will see what happens during the hackathons. That will not work in a digital hackathon, especially not with people that are not acquainted with what a hackathon is. So you have to prepare carefully, prepare one script on how you want to go through this hackathon. Think about diverging phases, converging phases, think about voting exercises, and think about inspiration. We saw that in essence, if you look at the time that we had for the hackathon, in general, these were 2 days. You could say that if you do this for the first time, the preparation takes the same amount of time as the hackathon itself. So take 2 days to schedule and set up the script. The next topic, the next learning is really important also. Facilitation of your team is best to be done by 2 people. If you do it alone, again, very complicated exercise, because you need one workshop facilitator to really bring the team into the development phase and select good ideas. But you also need a technical support. Think about a host, let's say. So keep that in mind. Don't try to do it alone, especially not if it's the first time. Try to build a facilitation team to go through this experience. Then a detail that cannot be skipped. Focus also, when you start, focus on a digital dummy session. Show how you are going to work. Show what you are going to do in Miro. Just let them experience it, to just write a first post it and paste it in their digital whiteboard. If you ignore it, you will have to do it during your innovation sessions. And that is, of course, definitely a no-go, because that creates a lot of fuss and a lot of complexity towards all other participants. Another very important topic is manage this type of innovation processes in small time blocks. I would say maximum blocks of 2 hours of intense digital collaborations mixed with individual sessions, don't have to be digital, or with breaks, and repeat them over and over again. Don't go over 2 hours of intense digital sessions, because it's really tiring to do this 3 days in overall 3 days. Then another topic, it's clear that real-time digital feedback is an unbelievably powerful thing to have. If you see what Miro and Mural can offer, they can offer a whiteboard where you can see everyone at work. So all participants also see everyone in real time. They see it through, of course, a mouse cursor or a post-it that is being moved. But in essence, if you grasp how you can manage this, my experience is this type of collaboration has the potential to even be more efficient than analog workshops, because you see each other at work, but there is less distraction. There is less background noise. There is less non-verbal communication that isn't always needed, but it can only work if there is real-time feedback. Another learning, you have to keep co-ownership, and for that co-ownership, you will have to set up voting systems during your exercise, during your innovation exercise. Voting in Mural and in Miro, there are specific applications that are offered for voting, but you don't have to use it. You can also mimic the way you do it in an analog way. Just draw simple dot stickers, circles, colored circles, and ask the participants to move these circles towards, let's say, the post-its with the IDs that they prefer. It's just that simple. So don't make it too complex all the time. And then a last learning that is really valuable, if you see a participant working digitally, they are always still in their private bubble. And that means that some actions are much easier to do than if you are close together, working in one environment. And one of the advantages is that participants are much more easily persuaded to link up with, for example, their own social network. So we had youngsters working on the problem of connecting with the unreachables. And if we ask them, okay, and now take your smartphone and go through some of your friends through Instagram to ask them something about your concept, it was immediately done, because they didn't have to show anything about Instagram to us. No, they just took their smartphone and they worked privately, and they came back with answers. So in general, the experience was really heavy time-wise, really heavy experience, and we have to script it even more and have to keep in mind that time management is important, but the end result was really powerful. It means that we saw that digital collaboration, the design thinking way, has the potential to really succeed the efficiency of traditional workshops. But I would say my last giveaway for you all guys, you have to keep in mind when you prepared your exercise, keep in mind that you have to look at it from a distance and think that at the end, it has to be a simple experience for all participants so they can focus on delivering results. That was there were my learnings, and we are repeating it right now almost on a weekly basis, becoming much more experienced with it. And I think we are going into a direction that will never leave anymore, because I see a lot of future possibilities that we will still go on exploring. Remco?
Okay, thank you, Roel. We've gone a little bit over time, but these are just the closing remarks at this moment. As I said at the set-off in the start of this webinar, the three important problems resulting from Corona is how do we get access to good user data? I think we have tried to answer this by showing you how we conduct interviews, focus groups, stuff like that, and how do we we can consult teams, user panels within our innovation efforts, also with the help of Buffel. Co-creation, how do we create the effect of transdisciplinarity without physically meeting? I hope you have been able to feel how we are actually getting very good results using these remote tools like Zoom and Miro and Mural and stuff like that, and that we are that we are actually surprised ourselves of the quality of the cooperation and the quality of the data that we can generate at this moment. We would have never thought it possible, but of course, desperate times call for desperate measures, and the shift has been made. A final remark that I want to give you. I also had a question about quality and amplitude. How do we avoid innovation theater and erosion of the design thinking process? And these are just my last final remarks. I think if you want to prevent the fact that the process, if you want to optimize the output of the design thinking process, first of all, you need to be brave, ambitious, and optimistic. I've tried to emphasize this in the introduction. I've tried to emphasize this by also introducing this massive transformative purpose tool. Basically, you need to be optimistic and future oriented as a designer, and you need to be ambitious about the impact that you want to have. It's only your personal ambition that will prevent you from going down this erosion path. It is a choice. The second thing is, it's not because you have a process that you don't have responsibilities. It's not because you're going through the motions and jumping through the hoops of a process in certain tools that the quality and the responsibility of each and individual participant remains important. So keep yourself and each other motivated, and be not strict, but motivate each other to give the maximum all the time. Data, information, knowledge, wisdom. Make sure that you go from the data to an informed decision, that you somehow turn data into information, that you turn information into knowledge through analysis, and then you take an informed step forward. And this is also something that I want to teach you, want to tell you in the next line. Think about the informed leap. One of the most important things within design thinking is that when you have learned something, then you take an ambitious leap forward in saying, this means that this will be the possible solution. The informed leap forward, the interpretation of data remains really important. The thing that I also want to say is design thinking light isn't design thinking. There's a lot of talk about what you can do in Agile, Scrum, Lean, stuff like that, UX, UI, and every approach has its merit. But some are continuous improvement tools and some are transformational tools. Design thinking is about transformation, not about making what already exists a little bit better. So don't do design thinking light, do design thinking with capital letters, please. Second, penultimate thing is there is no substitute for doing the work. As Roel also mentioned, when you are in the workshop, combining what you have known, what you have done, this doesn't absolve you from working really hard in between workshops also. The magic happens in the workshop, but the work is done oftentimes outside. A third thing is, try and aim at playing Champions League, because a crappy team delivers crap. So think about team composition, invite experts, don't think I'm doing design thinking in a Miro platform with two friends. Try to make a good team. Because if the knowledge is not in the team, it will not be in the solution. So a crappy team delivers crap. We need an A team. And I hope that we have presented to you an A team today. The A team for today was Roel de Rijk, was Dennis de Klerk, was Philippe Martens, was Manueline Cazot, and was Remco Lenstra. And I really hope, despite the fact that we have gone over time, that you enjoyed this webinar. And we will share everything that we have just produced for you. We will share this online. I hope to see you again.